Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, just, it's a common expression in the media, social media, I mean, if you just can't hate the media enough. Well, I want you to listen now to this. This is one for the ages, even by the fake news media standards. This is one for the ages. So, yesterday morning, an anti-ICE activist, and he's been identified, and I'm going to get to him in a second, but an anti-ICE activist used an incendiary device, basically a homemade IED, an improvised explosive device, and set off an explosion at the entrance to 26 Federal Plaza in Lower Manhattan, which that federal building houses ICE headquarters. There's even an ICE immigration court where illegals are processed there. And according now to official police records and local media, they say that a man armed with a collection of weapons, in particular, he had a hammer, he had a knife, he had other weapons as well, started a fire just outside of 26 Federal Plaza. This was done early Monday morning. Some people had minor injuries. The police said this is immediately being investigated as an act of possible terrorism. And what he did, and we have it on video, it's irrefutable, is that he began pouring some kind of inflammable liquid. I don't know if it's gas or whatever. And then, boom, he lit it on fire. And with this improvised explosive device, I mean, it went kaboom. You heard a big explosion, smoke everywhere. People thought, were people dead? How much damage? People were rushing out of the building. There was panic, chaos, pandemonium. Now, apparently, the terrorist is a liberal, an anti-ICE activist, a leftist, and he's an individual with a long history of anti-ICE activity. He even had a sign. He had a cart with him with all his weapons. On the cart, he had a sign reading, quote, "ICE off our streets." Now, the individual is a former Army veteran or member of was part of the Army. He's a 43-year-old Army veteran. Andrew Arabaka is his name. Arabaka is an anti-American, anti-ICE leftist. And he again, as I said, after he was arrested for detonating this incendiary device or this IED outside ICE offices in New York, told arresting officers, his words, that he didn't care how many federal workers or how many civilians he killed. In other words, his intent was to blow the building up and kill as many federal workers, as many innocent civilians as possible, to demonstrate and show solidarity against ICE, because according to him, ICE is the KKK. ICE is a fascist secret police that is going around persecuting, murdering, rounding up innocent people and illegal aliens who are just undocumented immigrants. That's all they are. They're immigrants who belong in America. They just don't have the right papers. And so, as I've pointed out in other areas, in other places, Mamdani bears a lot of responsibility for what happened yesterday. He's the one who's been demonizing ICE. He's the one who's been vilifying ICE as a modern-day American Gestapo, calling for them to be abolished, saying that they should be outlawed and banned, saying they are not welcome in New York City, that they are terrorizing and traumatizing communities all across New York. But the larger issue is this. We now have an anti-ICE terrorist, a liberal terrorist, who detonates an improvised explosive device right in front of ICE headquarters in New York City. And only by the grace of God was this person, were not people killed, that this person did not kill multiple, if not dozens of individuals. And this is the mainstream media's reaction. I'm telling you, you cannot make it up. Okay? So you've got a terrorist, a liberal terrorist, an anti-ICE terrorist trying to blow up ICE headquarters in New York City. NBC News comes out with this headline. Quote, you're not going to believe it? You have to look it up because I'm telling you, you're not going to believe me. This is what NBC News came out. Quote, fireworks set off outside 26 Federal Plaza, sources say, sending smoke billowing. Fireworks. Now, it wasn't just NBC. This is CBS News under Barry Weiss. What did they come out? What was their headline? Again, an anti-ICE terrorist tries to blow up an IED, actually blows up an IED in front of ICE headquarters. What's CBS's News' headline? Quote, here it is. Explosion outside New York Federal Building in Manhattan, apparently caused by fireworks, comma, sources say. Again, fireworks. Now, let me just make a couple of points, and then I want to throw it open to you, the great audience of Kuhner Country. 617-266-6868 is the number. Now you know why so many Americans hate, loathe, and distrust the fake news media establishment. The so-called legacy media, the corporate media, the drive-by media, as Rush called them, whatever term you want to use. Look at how blatantly they lie. Look at how blatantly they try to manipulate the American public. And why? Why are they calling what is clearly a terrorist attack an explosion by an improvised explosive device? Why are they calling it, quote unquote, fireworks? They're calling it fireworks because the perpetrator, Andrew Arabaka, is a leftist, is a liberal, is a Democrat. And so they have to cover up the fact that this was another left-wing terrorist bombing. That's the reason why they have to lie. And let me even get more to the heart of the matter. This is not news. This is not even close to news. This is straight lying and propaganda. Fireworks had nothing to do with this. This was a clear terrorist attack in which an incendiary device was blown up in an attempt to kill as many federal agents and civilians as possible. And yet here you have NBC, CBS, and other news outlets literally lying to cover up for the Democrats and to push a political agenda, deliberately gaslighting, manipulating, and lying to the American people. Why, to me, the question is, how does NBC News still have their broadcast license? How does CBS News still have their broadcast license? Their licenses should be revoked. And this comes on the heel of NBC News, ABC News, CNN not airing the president's speech last Thursday when he exposed Chinese election interference and direct involvement in Democrat voter fraud all the way back from 2018 through 2020, going on to this day. CBS was little better. They showed Trump in a little box, but you couldn't hear a word that was coming out of his mouth because they were bashing him throughout the entire speech. How do these big media outlets still keep their licenses to broadcast? Honestly, unbelievable. Truly unbelievable, even by their standards. It's unbelievable. So here you have a terrorist setting off an explosion in front of ICE headquarters in Lower Manhattan, right in front of the Federal Building. And NBC News says it was fireworks. CBS News says it was fireworks. And as someone pointed out on social media, and I thought was an excellent point, you know a leftist committed an act of terrorism when they call an incendiary device fireworks. When they call the use of an IED, an improvised explosive device, which was used, a fireworks. And now you know why nobody likes the media. Now you know why nobody trusts the media. Now you know why I've been saying for I don't know how many years, this is not quote unquote even a media. It's pure propaganda. It's Democrat activism masquerading as news. There's no news here. You're not reporting what actually happened. The who, where, why, when, how. That's what you're supposed to do. Because if you did your job, you would realize immediately that this terrorist who committed this act yesterday in downtown Manhattan was a well-known anti-American, anti-ICE activist, 43 years old, an Army veteran. He may have some mental health issues. That's what the Army is saying, whether he does or doesn't. The fact of the matter is he has a very long history of doing all sorts of things against ICE, of being a rabid anti-ICE activist who had a cart with him with weapons in the cart, a hammer, a knife, other weapons, with a sign saying ICE off our streets, who had been again emboldened by Mamdani and his vitriolic hatred for all things ICE. And when after he was arrested, Andrew Arabaka admitted that, yes, I planted an incendiary device. I wanted to blow up the building. And how many law enforcement officials I killed, how many civilians I killed, I don't care. So this was clearly an act by an anti-ICE terrorist on behalf of an anti-ICE movement. And yet the media, to cover up for the left, to cover up for liberals, to cover up for Democrats, it's fireworks. Now, how do they keep their license? Like, honestly, how do you keep your license? And by the way, let me see here, as DC Drano put it on social media, I want to give him credit for it. He said, just like when Trump was shot in Butler, the media called it, quote unquote, popping sounds. So you see, try to kill a president, bullets are whizzing by, they hit his ear, they kill a poor man in the stands, a family man, a firefighter. That's just popping sounds. That's not a murder attempt or an assassination attempt. No. You detonate an explosion in front of ICE buildings. No, that's not an explosion and an act of terrorism. That's fireworks. Just like if you remember under Trump's first term, it was all Russia, Trump, Putin collusion. And it turned out all of it was a pack of lies. All of it. And aggressively pushed and disseminated and promoted by the lying fake news media. which to this day have not apologized. There was never any collusion between Russia, Putin, and the Trump campaign. And now, since they're using this as the new standard, not one vote was changed. They never proved that one vote was changed. They couldn't even prove collusion. All they could prove was several $100,000 in Facebook ads. By the way, pushed in red states that Hillary Clinton had no chance of winning, like in Texas. So that was your big Russia collusion. And they went on about it night after night after night, year after year after year after year. And they have their broadcast license. How? It hasn't been pulled or revoked. Why? Why? I mean, I'm not talking, look, in the news business, mistakes will be made, obviously. But that's why you have corrections, and you correct as quickly as you can. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate gaslighting and manipulation. This was pure propaganda. They deliberately said things, reported things that were blatantly false in order to cover up for the fact that we have now an epidemic in our country of radical left-wing, anti-ICE liberal terrorism. And it's happening again and again and again and again. And it's being egged on, as I said, by Mamdani, by Michelle Wu, by Governor Healy, by Pritzker in Illinois, by Newsom in California, by Bernie and AOC and the Democratic Socialists of America, by the highest echelons of the Democratic Party, the commanding heights of the Democratic Party. And so they have to cover it up. And so suddenly an act of terrorism, blowing up an incendiary device. Okay. Should the major networks now get their broadcast licenses pulled or revoked? That is now the question. And it's not just this incident. It's incident after incident after incident. So, as I said, an explosion in front of ICE headquarters by a liberal terrorist, an anti-ICE terrorist, becomes fireworks. You can't make this up. Literally, you can't make this up. The president addresses the country on maybe one of the most important issues since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. And because the media is so corrupt, because they've been paid by the Chinese Communist Party to lie about the extent of voter fraud and the CCP's involvement in stealing the election from Trump and helping Joe Biden win in 2020, they either refused to air it, as CNN did, CNN or ABC or NBC refused to air it, or like CBS, they just, showed Trump, but you couldn't hear anything coming out of his mouth because all they were doing was criticizing and poo-pooing him the entire time. They lied about Russia collusion. I could go on. They lied about the Hunter Biden laptop. They called it Russian misinformatio. A coordinated Russian disinformatio campaign. Okay, a disinformation campaign. When they knew full well the laptop was real and it belonged to Hunter Biden. In other words, they keep pushing lies, and obvious propaganda in order to favor or support the Democratic Party and in order to cover up for their agenda or their crimes or their sins. Now, I'm telling you, that's what they did in Nazi Germany. That's what they did in the old Soviet Union. That's what they do in Cuba. That's what they do in China. That's what they do even now in Madarasha. That's what they do in Iran. So this is not a free and open press. This is a gutter press. It's a controlled press. It's a propaganda press. And I'm sorry, but having a broadcast license is something that's a privilege. It's given to them for free. It's worth billions and billions and billions of dollars, yet ABC, CBS, NBC have it for free. well, then there's a certain responsibility that comes with that. And it's just giving the news straight up, just the facts. Let the listener or the viewer decide. Those days are long gone. And so my question now to you, what are you shocked at what happened yesterday in Manhattan? The blowing up of an incendiary device at ICE headquarters? And do you believe now that the blatant lies told by the media, is it now grounds to pull or revoke their license? I say yes. What say you? Jake in Gloucester, you're going to kick us off, Jake. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Jake.
Good morning. Jeff, right away, today, we've got to send letters to Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson should call the Republican Congress together and immediately pass the old Smith-Munson Act. Is that the name of it? What was the actual name of that act?
Smith-Mundt Act. M-U-N-D-T. Smith-Mundt Act.
They're about free speech, but the Supreme Court ruled years ago you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's where your free speech stops because you could kill people. Well, as you have just so accurately mentioned for the past 20 minutes, the propaganda campaign of this corrupt press knows no bounds. Right away, Trump has to address the nation again and call these
Jake, can you just hang on? We have some kind of a technical issue we need to take care of. We're going to take care of it as quickly as we can, and then we're going to come back, continue with your call, Jake. Okay, we've gotten that technical issue dealt with, I hope. Let's go right back to Jake in Gloucester. Jake, please pick up where you left off.
Caller of the day. The first caller of the day, you have technical problems. Who is orchestrating this out there in the national media? You wonder, right? You just wonder. And we were talking about the Smith-Mundt Act. It's got to be redone. Obama dropped it. The beginning of this propaganda campaign and the beginning of the demise of this country and the propaganda nationwide began in 2008 with the election of Barack Hussein Obama, who is really, really at heart a communist. I knew that. You knew that. As soon as he said to Joe the plumber, you didn't build that, you knew what he was. That's what communists say. And so he was the beginning of the mass media camouflage campaign to camouflage what he was really all about. And so it's been almost 20 years of a living hell since Obama became president, except for the 4 years Trump was president. Well, have you called your contacts in D.C. to urge the president, Mike Johnson?
I have, Jake. I've been telling them they have to restore the Smith-Mundt Act. Okay, I want to ask all of you, have you lost all faith and trust and confidence in the so-called media establishment? I have. In fact, I lost it a long time ago. But have they now finally crossed the line? Yesterday, it was a new low. Maybe a low. I mean, I can't tell you how people are disgusted in reaction to those headlines, as I mentioned earlier, from NBC and CBS. Here you have, it's caught on camera. I mean, you can see the video. The video's gone viral. You have an anti-ICE terrorist with a long history of anti-ICE activity. Andrew Arabaka, as I said, 43 years old, an Army veteran. Just a diehard hater of ICE. And you see him with an incendiary device, and he just detonates it right there in front of a federal building in Lower Manhattan. Couple of people were wounded. It could have been so much worse. And he openly states, no, my goal was to kill as many people as possible. And so a terrorist detonates an explosive device, an IED, and NBC News says it's fireworks. CBS News, fireworks. CNN, fireworks. Now, I'm sorry, but it's not just a lie. It's a deliberate, malicious lie to cover up for the fact that this anti-ICE rhetoric, this anti-ICE vilification campaign is now leading people with some mental disorders to go out and commit acts of terror after acts of terror. And so now we're being deliberately lied to and manipulated and gaslighted. And I'm sorry, but that's not news. That's not even close to news. And I think it's time now to revoke their licenses. I mean, enough is enough. I mean, how much more of this can we take? How much more of this should we want to take? Agree, disagree? Arthur in Chestnut Hill. Thanks for holding, Arthur, and welcome.
Well, Jeff, if you think things are bad now, wait till we don't have any rights, because this country's already been taken over by the Chinese. It's very obvious. They control everything. And the fact is, we're talking about stuff. And that guy who did that bombing yesterday, he's an amateur. And let me, let's ask a question. If ICE doesn't go and arrest all these sexual predators and MS-13 gang members and all these illegal gangsters all over the country, who the hell's going to do it? And yet we allow people to protest against that. How stupid are we? It's not time to pass the Save America Act. It's time to Save America Act to save America. We had a revolution in 1776, and we don't govern this country the way the founding fathers did. What they meant by free speech was for us to speak against a bad country that was taxing us to death and oppressing us. Now we're allowing people to speak to oppress us again, and they've taken control of the country. Ever since the Chinese the Communist Party was allowed to function, they've sent us viruses, contaminated dog food and baby food, and what's more near and dear to our heart than dogs and babies. They sent us flus. They sent us everything to destroy this country. We've allowed them to take over farmland all over the country against military bases. We let spy balloons go by. Ever since Clinton got into cahoots with the Chinese government and took a $20 million bribe, he sold us out. Then we had 8 years of Obama, who sold us out and hated this country, went around the world and started revolutions and the Muslim migration, and look what that's caused. And then we had Biden for 4 years, who was bought and paid for, and they've had a long time. Look at all those years, and we've done nothing about that. The function of the press is to report things of public interest and not to cause harm. Well, that's what they do. They don't report the news, and you remember when the networks turned around, they broadcast those phony January 6th hearings, but they should have lost their license then. These people don't deserve a license. But I don't understand Trump. He goes out there and he asks for time for the first time in history. He was supposed to get time to report to the nation, and all he reported to was a few neighborhoods in our country. Nobody saw that.
Arthur, look, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, to me, that was I know compared to what we're talking about yesterday, small potatoes compared to what they did last week. And I think you're 1,000% correct. Here you have the President of the United States, as I said at the time, and I'm sticking by it because it's true, made the most important address from the Oval Office, I believe, since John F. Kennedy in the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. What he told us, plain and simple, was that the Chinese Communist Party, going back at least that we know of 8 years, has infiltrated our entire election system, stolen the registered voter data of over 220 million Americans, and had colluded with the Democratic Party to steal the 2020 election for Joe Biden. Instead of all this Trump-Russia collusion, as I said, It was Biden-Xi collusion. It was Biden-China collusion. That's, Democrat China collusion. That was the real scandal. And because they were implicated, because they were on the take, as Trump, blew the whistle, many of these media outlets and their journalists were taking Chinese money to cover up the voter fraud and to cover up the involvement of the Chinese Communist Party. And so because they were so corrupt that they were on the take, they decided not to air it. To me, what NBC News and ABC News did by not airing it is, to me, an admission of guilt. You didn't want your people to listen, your listeners or your viewers to watch, because it implicated you. And I don't think CBS News was frankly much better. Ditto for CNN and MS Now. So the fact that they wouldn't air it, to me, says everything I need to know. They're scared of the truth and they're trying to cover it up. And what did Trump actually accuse them of? Not accuse them, he's got the documents to prove it. That they were aiding and abetting our number one enemy to essentially rig our elections, infiltrate our election system in order to help the Democrats win. And that the media was paid to do hit piece after hit piece against President Trump in order to undermine him domestically, in order to help the Democrats to win. So the media is so corrupt, they're bought and paid for by a foreign power. Now, if that's not news worth reporting, now you may disagree, fine. So what you do is you air the president, you let him say what he has to say and all the evidence he's compiled, and he gave out all these websites where people can go and check what's there. And then if you want to criticize him or attack him or respond or refute him, that's how you do it in a constitutional republic or in a democracy. But they didn't do that. They wouldn't even let his words come on the air. To me, that's crossing a line. And then to compound insult to injury, you've got an attack in the heart of New York against the headquarters of ICE. By the way, there's a court inside processing illegals by a well-known anti-ICE activist and now an anti-ICE terrorist. And you guys are telling people, your readers and your viewers, this was all fireworks? Like, come on. I mean, this is starting. We're starting to put the old Soviet Union to shame with the blatant lies. So no, I think enough is enough. And I think we've been lied to now so often, we're almost getting used to it. So no, I think you're right, Arthur. The media is the enemy of the people. And I just think Trump now has got to do more than huff and puff. He's got to tell his FCC chairman to go out and do his job, which is revoke their licenses. Look, you guys want to be propaganda. You can be propaganda in America, but you don't have the right to a broadcast license. You want a broadcast license, you got to play it down the middle. You got to be fair. You got to be responsible. You got to do news. If you don't want to do news, if you want to do propaganda, fine. Then get your own cable channel and pay. But you're not going to get a free broadcast license. Arthur, as always, thank you so much for that call. Look, to me, the media now is so corrupt that I think, to me, it's a crisis. Who can believe a word that comes out of their mouth? Now, I want you to listen to Tom Homan, the border czar, because he went off on reporters, and I don't blame him. Because he says ever since, it's been going on for a couple of years, obviously, since Trump came back to office. But over the last month, with the shooting in Houston, Texas, with the shooting in Biddeford, Maine, it's now gone into hyper overdrive. And Homan's point, and he's completely correct, you are leaving out fundamental facts. You are deliberately smearing and defaming ICE agents just to whip up hatred and hysteria against ICE. What you're leaving out is these were illegal aliens who were trying, not only disobeying commands from the police. The one in Houston took his car, rammed it against an ICE vehicle, and then afterwards tried to run over ICE agents, and they shot in self-defense. Biddeford, Maine, ditto. An illegal alien went into his vehicle, was told to get out of his vehicle, refused, and then tried to, and after multiple commands, said, get out, this is ICE, get out, this is ICE. What did he do? He hit the gas pedal and tried to deliberately run over ICE agents. So what are they supposed to do? Allow themselves to get run over? So they fired in self-defense. The media is not mentioning any of that. The way they're portraying it is that these ICE agents are stone cold executioners. Like I said, the SS, the American version of the SS. That's how they're presenting it. As if they just came up, oh, illegal, bang, shoot him in the head. This one, oh, an illegal, bang, shoot him in the head. Now, listen to Homan saying, I'm telling you, the attacks against ICE officers is escalating. They're constantly being rammed, attempted to run over. They're being shot at. Projectiles are being thrown at them. Now, incendiary devices are being blown up at their buildings and at their headquarters. There's been multiple assassination attempts from, snipers from roofs to target and assassinate ICE. The instances of anti-ICE terrorism are exponentially growing in this country. Homan said, look, I'm telling you, you're going to get ICE agents killed. It's no longer a question of if, it's a question of when. And it's because of you. Because you're inflaming the situation. Because you're lying about the situation. Because you're spreading unnecessary fear and hysteria. Listen to Homan. Roll cut 35, Mike.
I said this a year ago. If a hateful rhetoric doesn't stop, there will be bloodshed. And unfortunately, I was right. Now, I'll tell you something else. It's not over yet. Unless they keep attacking and miscommunicating what ICE does every day, calling them Nazis, and comparing ICE to the Nazi regime. Are you kidding me? And I'm not saying the whole country is convinced, but there's going to be that population that's just going to embolden to do something stupid. And I'm afraid that we're going to bury an ICE agent. I'm afraid I'm going to hand another folded flag to a spouse or a child of an ICE agent for simply doing his job. And for any member of Congress to keep attacking ICE and calling them fascists and Nazis, I said it 1,000 times. If they're a Nazi for enforcing the law, what's that make them? They wrote the law.
Look, he's completely right. But they don't care. The Democrats don't care. The media doesn't care. They don't care. I mean, that's just the sad truth of the matter. Because what they want is they want to continue the lies and the hysteria and the fear-mongering and the panic porn. Because they want ICE under tremendous pressure. Because they want to abolish ICE. They want to get rid of ICE. They don't want these deportations to take place. So they'll call them Nazis all day, all night. They don't care, and they know it's not true. In fact, it's defamation. That's what it is. So, you see, once you understand that these, and I'm putting this in air quotes, these reporters, these quote-unquote journalists, they're not reporters, they're not journalists, they're prostitutes. They're hired guns. You pay them, and they'll just say whatever you want them to say. They hate Trump. They hate ICE. They love open borders. They don't want to see a single illegal alien deported. And they're going to lie and lie and lie as long as it takes in order to stop ICE from doing its job. Their goal is not to tell the truth. It's like under Goebbels. You know, they keep calling ICE and Trump Nazis. Honestly, the only Nazis are them. It's so obvious. You know, Goebbels invented propaganda. And he said the key to the big lie is you just repeat a lie often enough and it will be accepted as truth. And that's what you're seeing now about ICE being Nazis and fascists and stormtroopers and murderers and executioners and blah, 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 blah. And all you need is a small segment of the population. Let's be frank, the Bills in Sudbury, the Chris's in Gloucester, okay, hardcore moonbats who are a little bit mentally unstable to begin with. And like the guy that acted yesterday at Federal Plaza in New York City. And that's all it takes. And that's like a dog whistle. So hell, it's a bullhorn. What dog whistle? And so you just keep blowing up incendiary devices, or you try to run them over, or you shoot them, or whatever you do until eventually you get them killed. And after a while, ICE doesn't want to do its job because it's impossible to do their job because they're under constant threat night and day. Now, to me, Trump has to make a decision now. Either you smash these sanctuary cities and smash these sanctuary states and say from this point forward, if you're going to continue to obstruct ICE, we're going to jail you. Period. Full stop. You can't obstruct federal law enforcement. Why should you be able to obstruct ICE? And as for the media, restore the Smith-Mundt Act. Now, you cannot use the airwaves to broadcast propaganda. Obama got rid of it. We need to restore it. And on the broadcast licenses, look, ABC News, ABC, forgive me, NBC, that's their lifeblood, is that broadcast license. Well, then get a control of your newsrooms. I don't care. You don't have to be pro-Trump or anti-Trump. Just play it down the middle. Here's who did what, where, why, when, how. Just give the 5 W's as they used to be called. Just do basic journalism. But that's, they don't care for that. They're part of la résistance, the resistance. Now, here's my prediction. I think the media has so discredited itself that when Trump leaves office, they will never be trusted again. I know they're not trusted by you, by me, by way over half the country. But I'm telling you, when they're done, when Trump goes, no one, and I mean no one, is going to believe a single word that they say. And that's what's happened, by the way, in every communist regime when you have propaganda. After a while, even the leftists don't believe the garbage that their side is spewing. So I think they've made a fatal mistake, but that's their business. I really don't care. Now, my question to you, and it's really now one of the most important questions. Number one, is the media irreparably broken in your view? Are they now just a bunch of paid liars? And if that's the case, why do they continue to have the rights and the privileges that they continue to hold? Why should they be allowed to broadcast things that are clearly false, clearly not true, clearly malicious, clearly pernicious, clearly dangerous? And should they be now have to pay a price? I think the answer is obviously yes, but that's me. 617-266-6868 is the number. Do you now fear more attacks on ICE agents? Do you fear the rise of anti-ICE terrorism? And is now the media the problem? In other words, President Trump said it many, many years ago, and I believe he was a prophet. He said the media is the enemy of the people. At this point, after everything that we've seen, this is from Larry in Arkansas. Jeff, regarding the anti-ICE terrorist, the one that tried to blow up the Federal Plaza, the ICE headquarters in New York yesterday, New York City, Manhattan. Jeff, do you think Mayor Mamdani will invite him to dinner? Probably. Yeah, probably. Who knows? This is from Sergeant Rock. Jeff, the anti-ICE terrorist, Andrew Arabaka, had 2 axes, a machete, a pellet pistol, a hammer, and 3 knives on him, besides, his incendiary device. That's quite a lot of weapons. I think you should mention them all on the air. You got it, Sergeant Rock. No, hey, it was just fireworks. It was just fireworks. Or as CNN would like to say, mostly peaceful fireworks. It's peace. I mean, sure, there was an explosion, but hey, couple people were injured. Was anybody killed? What's the problem? Tina in Danvers. Thanks for holding, Tina, and welcome.
Hey, thank you for taking my phone call.
My pleasure.
I just wanted to, I'm sickened by what the media are doing. I just roll my eyes at them because they're idiots. And people who believe them are not exactly smart. However, I just wanted to let you know that the other day on Facebook, at the Danvers Town page, somebody said, "Oh no, ICE agents are in town, hide," or said something like that. And overwhelmingly, the comments on shut up, get out of their way, just let them do their jobs. I'm very much pro-ICE, and to the point where the person who wrote it actually turned off the comments because they were sickened by their comments, is what he said. And I just wanted to give you guys a little, hey, it's not everybody's against ICE. So I just...
Oh, you're dead on. No, Tina, look, and I'm very grateful you called because you're completely right. The overwhelming majority of Americans are pro-ICE. I mean, they're pro-law and order, they're pro-ICE, I could go on, they're pro-secure borders, they're pro-deportation. Frankly, if you want to get even more into it, they're pro-family, they're pro-America, they're very patriotic, they're pro the free market system. I'm not saying that things can't be tweaked a little bit or reformed, but for the most part, they love the free market system, they love the Constitution, they love the Bill of Rights, they love America, our founding, our heritage. There's no question. This is now an 80-20 country. We are the 80. There's no doubt about it. That's why the Democrats need to steal elections. That was Trump's point in that big, I thought magnificent speech he delivered on Thursday. His point was the reason why they're using China to try to interfere and rig elections and commit voter fraud is because they can't win on the issues. They can't. Look, you've got the media now covering up for an anti-ICE terrorist. I mean, that's how pathetic it is. So, no, you're not going to win. They can't win. That's why, again, to bring it all full circle, Tina, that's why they're all opposed to the Save America Act. Because if you have voter ID and you have to show proof of citizenship to be registered to vote, and you limit and curtail, mail-in balloting, then, in other words, make it level the playing field. If it's an honest, free, fair election, they get destroyed. To be honest, Tina, I'm telling you, they don't just get destroyed in red states. They don't just get destroyed in purple states. I think you're going to find out in blue states. We're going to be scratching our heads and saying they weren't even that strong in blue states. And that's why they don't want to hand over the voting rolls. That's why they don't want to vote for the Save America Act. That's why they don't want voter ID. Because they know if, what you're saying on Facebook, that's the country. But you see, what they're counting on, Tina, and I want to give you the final word, is, and it's by design, notice the fear. Everybody hide. ICE is in town. I don't know, the Red Army is rolling through. The Wehrmacht is coming in. No. First of all, if you're not an illegal alien, you have nothing to worry about. Even if you're an illegal alien, unless you're a criminal illegal alien with an arrest warrant, you got nothing to worry about. But they're acting like it's going to be executioners door to door to door. And those are the kinds of people that can be radicalized and commit terrorist acts or acts of violence. Tina, am I wrong?
Completely agree with you. And I just wish that we could have more people more vocal about it to stand up against the press to basically saying, shut up.
No, you're dead on. I agree with you. And look, Tina, really smart call. Thank you so much for that call. You know, that's why I'm coming out swinging. Like, enough is enough. And you're going to say, well, Jeff, you know, of all the crimes they've committed, and I made Trump, Russia collusion, the Hunter Biden laptop, I could go on and on. They didn't air Trump's speech on Thursday. Are you kidding me? So you're going to say, well, calling an ICE attack fireworks, you know, kind of maybe ranks low. Okay. But to me, it crystallizes just how blatant, how obvious, honestly, how sickening. Okay, I want to ask all of you, the great audience of Kuhner Country, the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Was the NBC News, and I would add CBS, but let's just stick to NBC because it was the most flagrant, was the NBC News description of an arsonist attack on a federal building which housed ICE headquarters a case of negligence or deliberate misrepresentation? In other words, and Sandy made this point to me, and it was a very good point, you know, in our pre-show meeting. She said, you know, Jeff, it's the middle of the summer. A lot of people in the media are taking, you know, vacation. And so they often will have interns, you know, substitutes, people from college coming in and helping out. And so how do I say this? It's not even the B team, it's the C team. And, you know, they make mistakes, or they're afraid, or they're fearful, or they're not very good, or they, you know, whatever, or they want to spin it a certain way. But, you know, she's saying, look, it could have just been negligence. You know, we're assuming the worst motives on their part. She goes, come on, man, it's the summer, news operation. You know how it is. There's barely people there to begin with. And the few people they have, it's a lot of interns and kids from college. So this just may be, you know, shabby work on their part. So let me ask all of you, do you think this NBC description of what happened yesterday, of an arsonist attack on a federal building, that it was fireworks, not an explosion by a terrorist, but fireworks? Was this a case of negligence or deliberate misrepresentation? Because the consequences are huge if it's one or the other. A, negligence. B, deliberate misrepresentation. You know where I stand. I think this was clearly deliberate, and I think there needs to be now serious consequences. They have to pay a price, and they have to pay a very dear price, because enough is enough. But that's me. A, negligence. B, deliberate. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN as in national ER. You can also vote via X, and I was active on X last night. Believe me, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, KUHN as in national ER. Many of you are already texting in. This is from 781 saying, Jeff, if it was NBC News alone, maybe you can say it was the negligence. But the fact that other networks did it, like CBS News, for example, and CNN, no. It's a pattern. It's deliberate misrepresentation. I agree. Dan in Florida. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Dan.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
It could probably be negligence, Jeff. You know, seriously.
Yeah. Stevie Wonder could have called that better.
Dan, hold on. You sound like C-3PO. or actually R2-D2 in Star Wars. Hold on. Let's see if we can reconnect with you and have you sound like a normal human being. Mike, can you work your magic, Mike? Or you or Sandy? All right. All right. So, yeah, many of you, it's going 9-1. Many of you are saying this was clearly deliberate misrepresentation. And I'll be honest, if this was a one-off, it happens. But you look at what they did last week, the Trump speech, you look at their record, you know, whether it's Hunter Biden's laptop or the Trump-Russia collusion, or I could go on and on. No, they're liars and they're paid to lie. But that's me. All right, do we have Dan back? Do we have a human form of Dan on the phone? Dan?
Jeff, my brother.
Yes,
Jeff, my brother
you sound like yourself.
Mother. Here you go.
Go ahead, my friend.
It was great. I got to talk to Sandy while she was fixing it. That was the best. I'd rather talk to Sandy, Jeff. Anyways, so anyways, Jeff, seriously, Stevie Wonder could have called that better. You watch that video, you watch the guy run up and dump a 5-gallon jug of gasoline and then light it and then start. It looked like he pulled some type of a gun out. The scary thing is, Jeff, and this is reality, we don't know if that was one guy or there were 50 guys around the city doing the same type of thing. So misreporting is not just negligent, Jeff. It's criminal.
Dan, what do you think the penalty should be?
For NBC?
NBC, CBS, in other words, this constant deliberate lying and misrepresentation. What do you think the ultimate fallout, cost, penalty should be, in your view?
Penalties aren't affecting them. How many lawsuits has Trump won against the press? Or settled against the press? Millions and millions and millions of dollars. So clearly that's not working. So I don't know, Jeff, maybe start yanking licenses. But I can tell you this, Jeff. So I split time between Boston and Florida. Less time in Boston these days, thank God. But I run with a group out of Boston when I'm there, and two of the guys in the group are local reporters in Boston. You'd know them if I mention their names. They're on the TV all the time. But in June, I think it was June 18th of 2015, one of the reporters came back. He had covered the Trump's first rally in New Hampshire. And he got with a group and he said, "Hey, I just met the next president." And everybody's, "What are you, crazy?" And he said, "No." He goes, "No one can beat this guy." He goes, and he said, "After this," he goes, "my job is totally changed. When Trump's done, the press in this country will be totally changed." That was in 2016, Jeff.
Wow.
2015.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
So, remember when COVID had first hit and everybody had to go home and work from home, and I was sitting literally at my dining room table working as my new office, and I had the TV up on the wall listening, and I'd listen to the COVID press conferences. Remember, Trump would do a press conference every single day, and the news would immediately break, when he was done, and they would report something that he didn't say. I'd listen to the press conference, and I was looking at the TV, and that's when I first learned, wow, the press is so much worse than we ever thought.
Oh, Dan,
what do you say, Jeff?
You're dead on. I mean, I honestly, you hit a home run, grand slam. I mean, I remember, I'll never forget COVID, how they just lied. And you're right. They would come in and say, well, Trump said this, Trump said to drink bleach. He never said that. I could go on and on, example after example. I remember one point they were like, he says, let him die. He never said that. So, I mean, it was inflammatory. It was completely false. It was incendiary. It was hysteria. They were just pushing mass hysteria. And then when Trump rightly said, look, remember that box that CNN had, on the side, the deaths from COVID, and they just kept, to try to, create as much panic as possible. And Trump rightly came out and said, look, guys, stop. He goes, it's bad enough as it is. Don't make it worse by inflaming the situation. You're counting all kinds of deaths. Somebody dies in a car accident. If the person, for example, may have had COVID, you're claiming it as a COVID death. It wasn't COVID. If a person jumped off a building, committed suicide, had COVID, you say, oh, that's a COVID death. No, the suicide killed him. The car accident killed him. You're just putting everything into the COVID box to try to make it seem much worse than what it is. He's a COVID denier. I mean, after a while, Dan, I'm being brutally honest with you. You almost feel degraded and dehumanized listening to these people because they clearly have no respect for us as human beings. You know, Dan, to lie to someone to their face over and over again, you don't respect them. You really have zero respect for them. It's the most insulting thing someone can do. And that's what they do. They lie to us over and over and over. It's insulting. And that's why I keep urging everybody, don't watch them. Don't watch them. Don't give them any importance. Don't give them any ratings. Nothing. I refuse to go on. I will not give them any legitimacy whatsoever. To me, it's obvious. These people are not serious. And what's worse is they're almost sociopaths because they take money. They're all prostitutes. Okay, this is from 617. And 617 is making, by the way, you can text the Kuhner man 70470, 70470. 617 is making a point very similar to the one made by 781. But I think it's a good one and it bears repeating. Jeff, if it was just NBC, you might be able to say it was a mistake. It was just negligence. But NBC was not alone with the fireworks lie. So your original assessment is correct. The media, they didn't want to report the truth because the attacker was a Democrat, one of their own. Bingo. Bingo. This is from Mark on Messenger. And I think Mark again hits the nail right on the head. Jeff, so most people, including myself, now get all of my news mostly from X, formerly Twitter. So what I think should happen is Trump should give Elon Musk a call and try to convince him to start the X News channel. Because we all know Elon Musk hates the mainstream media. And I guarantee his ratings will destroy the mainstream media's ratings. And I know Trump's people are listening. So what do you think, Jeff? Good idea or bad idea? I love it. I swear I love it. I absolutely love it. The question is, Elon's got so much on his plate already. Does he want to add, an X news channel on top of everything else? But, look, let me ask all of you, where do you get your news? I'm just curious. What's your primary source of news? Do you watch the big networks? Do you watch NBC, CBS, ABC? Do you watch cable news? For example, do you watch Fox? Do you watch Newsmax? Do you watch CNN? Do you watch MS Now? Do you get it on the internet? Do you get it on X, as many people increasingly do? And look, I agree with Mark. More and more people are getting their news off of social media, places like X. And I'll tell you why. Because X is infinitely more accurate and honest and truthful than the so-called quote-unquote establishment or legacy media. On X, and they always have a list of stories that you can read if you want, they would never come out and say it was fireworks. They just wouldn't. I could give you they reported what Trump said very honestly. His speech on Thursday, agreed, disagreed. They don't make a value assessment, an editorial judgment. They just said, President Trump said, boom, 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 boom. Agree, disagree, that's up to you. But, just the facts and nothing but the facts. And, President Trump said, go to these sites if you want to see more evidence of these declassified documents that he says proves his argument. Now, you go, you can argue, debate, what do they mean, what do they say? But the point is, you got what the president said in a nice, concise version, and then you make your decision. That's not what the media does anymore. The media tells you Trump is lying before they've even reported one sentence of what he said. So that's why, to me, you look at the MS Now's ratings are in the toilet. CNN, I'm telling you, should be sold off because I don't know who watches CNN. Who the hell watches CBS News, even under Barry Weiss? I think it's garbage. NBC News, ABC News, to me, are an absolute joke. And look, I've given up on the New York Times and the Washington Post. The Boston Globe, to me, is a rag. So you look at many sort of traditional news sources. They have no credibility. They either have no listeners or no viewers or no readers. So the dinosaur media, the lying, fake news, Democrat, activist, propaganda, so-called media, is dying away because it's just lies. Look, I'm telling you, they get their stories from the Democrat National Committee. So if I want to hear propaganda from the Democrats, why should I pay or watch something on NBC or buy a newspaper? Buy the New York Times or buy the Globe or whatever. I'll just I get the emails from the DNC. Oh, okay. So this is the BS that you guys are not. This is the bull crap you guys are now peddling. Okay, I got it. Thank you. It's like when Bill in Sudbury or Chris in Gloucester call, and they're just regurgitating what they've seen on MS Now. And MS Now is just regurgitating what the Democratic National Committee said. So the Democrats give their talking points. MS Now repeats it. And then you got Bill who calls in, or Chris or whoever, and they repeat the same propaganda that they heard. And they think we're all supposed to go, wow. Oh, blinding insight. Oh, that's so brilliant and unique and original. We're like, I don't need to hear it from you, dude. I get it straight from the proverbial horse's mouth. I get their stupid email every single morning. So can't you contribute anything original or independent? They can't think for themselves. But my point is, who reads these people? Who watches these people? Increasingly fewer and fewer and fewer Americans do. And that's why I think Trump now should put the kibosh in him. Now that you have him on the ropes, finish him off. Agree, disagree. Nikki in Bradford. Thanks for holding, Nikki, and welcome.
Oh, my blood pressure.
Oh, it's up again. It's up again. I'm so sorry.
So you asked the question. It's all right. I forgive you. I haven't seen my husband yet today, so this is all you, buddy. You asked the question, where do we get our news? I get my news Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. till 9:58 a.m., and then sometimes from like 2 to 6. And the occasional blip here and there that I see online that doesn't look like absolute garbage. But other than that, that's about it, buddy. So you're it.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. Thank you, Nikki. I'm just curious. So you don't read any, and it's not criticism. I don't blame you. I'm just asking. No. You don't read any newspapers. Do you watch, do you watch Fox? Do you watch Newsmax? Do you watch any of the cable news shows?
Occasionally, my husband's big on YouTube, watching YouTube TV. So he'll watch all that stuff. So he's my secondary news source. I roll my eyes and call him Channel 5 every time he tells me. Usually he'll say, hey, did you hear this? And I'm like, yes, I heard it. Jeff said it this morning. Like, I'll just, cause he works nights, so he'll get up and think that all this stuff is new come 4 PM, where it's, 6 days old.
Oh, I got it. I get it. So now, Nikki, if you don't mind me asking, and I really appreciate you listening to the show, but why? Why don't you, I don't know, why don't you read the Globe? Why don't you read the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or watch the nightly news or watch even the local news? I'm just curious.
Brain cells to rub together, and I'm related to a couple of them that questionable. I don't know if I got an extra helping or what, but I mean, it's obviously slanted. And if you, on the rare occasion where I do get stuck listening to that, then, you see it all day, and it's just regurgitated, and like you said, if you say it enough, people will believe it as truth. That's it, and it's obvious. It's obvious, and they have no other talking points. But here's the list of the talking points for the day. They use the same phrasing, the same pauses, the same wording. Why am I going to listen to that? Why? That's not news. That's propaganda. It's garbage.
You nailed it. Nikki, you're not 1,000% correct. You're 1,000,000% correct. Nikki, you hit the nail right on the head. Nikki, thank you so much for that call. No, she's completely right. It's the same stories, and she's right. Because, once in a while I channel surf, and I'm like, they use the exact same words, the exact same talking points, the exact same phrases. They even pause at the exact same time. I mean, these are different hosts on different shows or whatever. And you're like, what forget the memo. Like, they're singing off the same choir book. And it's the same garbage over and over and over and over. And to me, what's most disgusting is either it's an outright lie, like just for example, the Hunter Biden laptop. Well, 57 former intelligence officials have said this is Russian disinformation. And of course they knew it was a lie. But they just said it over and over and over and over and over. And then they never apologized afterwards. Or, like the shooting in Maine or the shooting in Houston, they omit the most important part of the story. Well, why did they shoot the driver? Why did ICE do it? Oh, because the driver was trying to run them over. Oh, I'm sorry, you forgot. That's the whole story. You omitted the key part of the story. So what they're telling you, basically what they're saying is, well, you shot him in the head for no reason. And they go right away to activists are angry, residents are angry, and they get some activist. ICE needs to be held accountable. This is murder. They're going to murder us all. And nowhere in the story is, for example, like in Biddeford, Maine, tried to ram a vehicle. They said, please get out of your car, sir. They gave him multiple warnings, multiple commands. And then he just hit the gas pedal, gunned the car, and tried to run over a couple of ICE agents. One in particular, it was either pull out my gun and shoot or I get run over. Well, you left the heart and soul out of the story. And deliberately. Who wants to listen to that? That's not designed to inform. That's not there to give you the facts and just the facts. That's designed to brainwash you. That's designed to make you hate ICE. That's not media. Doug in Tennessee. Thanks for holding, Doug, and welcome.
Jeff, first of all, I told Sandy my name was Doug 6000. She said she couldn't fit that on the board. I just have to be plain Doug. But,
So it's Doug 6000.
Yes.
Doug, if you don't mind me asking, why this is it how many miles you've driven, or why Doug 6000?
No, because I Googled how many people you represent when you respond to the Nielsen survey for radio and television, and they said anywhere between 5,000 and 7,000 people. Somewhere right in the middle. I'm Doug 6000.
Okay.
I represent 6,000 people.
Yeah, okay.
Where do I get my news from? Every morning at 5:57, my alarm goes off. I get on Jeff on iHeartRadio, and we listen to Jeff for 4 hours straight.
Oh, thank you, Doug.
Rest of the day, I listen to Newsmax, but I prefer you because you give me the emotional side of the news. Your emotions are the same as mine. Newsmax is too neutral, and I prefer listening to you. I prefer getting my news from you.
Oh,
anyway,
thank you. Doug, if you don't mind, I promise I'll let you finish your point. I'm just curious, why not the legacy media? Why not NBC, ABC, CBS? They spend billions on their staff. They've got reporters all over the world, all over the country. You mentioned Newsmax. I get it. Fox, CNN, MS Now. I'm sure there's some good quality local papers in Tennessee. There's national papers, New York Times, Washington Post, others, USA Today. I'm just curious, Doug, or your local news. Why do you not read, follow, or get your information from those more quote unquote traditional news sources? I'm just curious. Why, Doug?
Well, in a story, it's because there were fireworks set off yesterday. just fireworks. That's all it is. That's why I don't.
Doug, when in your mind did you notice a real shift or change where you said, no. Yeah, they may have been biased against Republicans or conservatives in the past. Okay. But, if I read a story, I would still get the basic facts. Spun in the Democrats' favor, but still I would get the whole story. When did you notice this went from journalism to advocacy, journalism to activism to propaganda? Was there a certain story or moment that really crystallized it for you?
It's always been that way, Jeff. It's always been that way. I remember in the 80s listening to Tom Brokaw once. He kept me hanging on through a commercial. He said, next we're going to cover a story of a man who murdered somebody and got away with it. And it turned out there was some other guy beating down his door with an axe. And as soon as he got the door all the way beaten down, the guy killed him with a shotgun or something. And Tom Brokaw announced that as murder. It wasn't murder. It was self-defense. It's always been that way. The legacy media has always been biased toward the liberal point of view, and I've never trusted them.
Doug, you're a very smart man. Really, I'm telling you, seriously. I mean, I know you have a high IQ, guaranteed minimum 140. Because I never liked Tom Brokaw, I never liked Peter Jennings. I didn't care for Dan Rather. To me, was the worst of all three of them. To me, it was the 80s. It was really the 80s when I saw and how anti-Reagan they were and how anti-conservative they were. And then it just got worse. I mean, it just got worse and worse and more blatant and more flagrant and more in your face and more obvious to the point now, as you said, it's fireworks. An improvised explosive device is now, well, it's fireworks. Okay. Bye. Change the channel. Bye. And Doug, I'm telling you, they're not going to recover. They lose money. Doug, just so everybody knows, CNN loses money. MS Now loses money. The news departments of ABC, CBS, NBC, they bleed money. So they're being carried. They're being subsidized by others. If they didn't have that subsidy, they're finished. The New York Times is a losing money enterprise. Billionaires will buy it. It's like what Jeff Bezos did. Jeff Bezos bought Washington Post. By the way, he admitted, who was it that he admitted? Was it Trump or Elon? I can't remember, but it was somebody, high up. And he said they're the worst. That the journalists and editors at the Washington Post, this is Jeff Bezos. He says they're the worst people I've ever met. By far the worst. They're the worst. Arrogant, entitled, ignorant, all-knowing, offensive, off-putting, and as he said it, mendacious. He goes, I thought they were journalists. He goes, they're all a bunch of liars. And so they say, well, and it loses him money. And they go, well, if it's losing you money, he goes, well, no, it's the access, it's the power, it's the influence, it's the prestige. You know, you want to have access, you want to have influence. Journalists like to get, get reporters and journalists like to get politicians on the record, do puff stories, advocate for certain pieces of legislation. So if I need something done, I have the Washington Post. But basically now it's a tool by oligarchs, like in Eastern Europe, to get as a mouthpiece for them and for their business interests. It's a way to get access and influence. That's what they've now really become. So, the days of old of, really serious editors-in-chief and managing editors who, no, we're just going to report the facts and no outside interference. Doug, those days are long gone. That's small, independent new media. But this, Doug, they're just as corrupt as the politicians. And obviously you've seen through them. Doug, thank you very much for that call. I'm with Doug. To me, it was the 80s. But I have to say, something in the Obama era, when Obama was elected, something changed. It did get even more worse. More in your face, more pronounced. They didn't even hide it anymore. It was, we're going to get him elected, and we're going to make sure that there's not a single scandal that we cover. We're going to suppress and cover up anything negative against him, no matter what. And basically, our job is to be his phalanx guard. We're there to protect him at all costs and attack and destroy all of his adversaries at all costs. And they haven't, with the election of Trump, they've gotten even worse. But I think, to me, Obama was when they really went off the cliff. Anyway, just my opinion. Agree, disagree. Heather in Wareham. Mike, you misspelled Wareham. I mean, I don't know if it was, I don't know if it's you or Sandy, but, is it that hard to properly spell a town? Am I asking for too much? Heather in Wareham, Wareham. I spelled it correctly. Go ahead, Heather.
Hi, Jeffrey. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Asked where we get our news. 3 ways. Number one, always listening to you every day. Like, probably you're my number one news source. I'm not like blowing smoke up your butt.
Thank you.
That you are definitely my number one news source. And like YouTube, I love like Mike Urban. There's that guy, the New York guy. He's cool. Cash Jordan. There's a couple of YouTubers I really, really like. I do like Mike Urban for like Massachusetts stuff. And then I have a group of friends from like back when we were campaigning for Trump on the bridge, and I have a group chat, and they send some, like if they hear different news stories or whatever is going on, they'll like, post it out on the text chain. And and the only way I watch regular news, like, is in the morning and I don't even have it on that often, is for the weather. That's it. Like, I don't really, if the news is on and something comes up, I take it with a grain of salt. There's just, yeah. So basically you and, social media is where I get my news.
Heather, I got to tell you, you're becoming in the way you consume news or absorb news. You're becoming now that's the majority now. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. To show you how out of touch and really disconnected, not just from the mainstream of the United States, but really disconnected from reality itself, the media and frankly many Democrats and liberals have become. Please look this up because you are not going to believe this story. It is so outrageous that you can't make it up. So please look it up because you're going to see everything the Kuhner man is telling you is 1,000% true. In 2024, in fact, September 2024, to be more accurate, a Mexican national illegal alien, his name is Brandon Ortiz Vite, murdered in cold blood a 25-year-old young woman from Michigan, Ruby Garcia. In fact, he confessed to the murder. And not only did he confess to authorities, he pled guilty at trial. So there's no question about it. This man brutally murdered a 25-year-old American citizen. Now, you're going to say, Jeff, okay, an illegal alien murders an American. It's disgusting. It's horrible. But this has been going on for so long now. What's the story? He was originally deported in Trump's first term. He was illegal, broke into the United States. He was arrested for driving while intoxicated. And Trump's ICE and DHS deported this man back to Mexico. But guess what? Under Dementia Joe, he snuck back into the country under Biden's deadly open borders policy, and then met this girl, Ruby Garcia, and apparently they had a bit of a romantic relationship, and then she wanted to call it off, and this savage put 3 bullets into her head. And then not only did he kill her, he then put her in his car, he took her car, put her in the back seat of her own car, and then dropped her off the shoulder of a highway in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Eventually, he went to a church, confessed what he had done to a priest. The priest called the police, and then he confessed to them, and then he pled guilty, second-degree murder. Okay, now, why is this man in the news again? Because as he's currently serving a 40-year to 100-year sentence for the murder of Ruby Garcia, he has now filed a federal lawsuit, I swear to you, against President Trump. And why is this man suing the president? Because during the 2024 election campaign against Biden and then Kamala Harris, President Trump in Michigan and elsewhere ran campaign ads featuring, highlighting, you guessed it, Brandon Ortiz Vite, saying, this is what's wrong with Biden's open borders. We had deported this guy came back in, and he murdered a 25-year-old innocent woman, Ruby Garcia, in cold blood. That's why the border needs to be secured. That's why the border needs to be closed. Now, you would think, having committed such a heinous crime, that this thug, this murderer, this scumbag, would keep his mouth shut and be, serving behind bars in shame. No. He's now filed a federal lawsuit. He's the victim, saying the fact that Trump publicly mentioned him and put him and featured him in a campaign ad, according to Ortiz Vite, quote unquote, his words, shattered my honor, shattered my pride. It was a humiliation, according to him. A profound injustice was done to him and his family name and his family honor. Okay, The media is now, this to me is just unbelievable. They're turning this guy, this illegal alien, convicted of murdering Ruby Garcia. By the way, brutal, horrendous, cold-blooded murder. They were having some kind of an argument. I think she was thinking of leaving him or saying it's over. And his reaction was he had a gun. I think he shot her twice or three times in the head. He just murdered her in cold blood. Boom, boom, right in the head. That's it. It's over. And then he dumped her body, as I said, in the back of her car, drove her car, and then threw the body on the shoulder of a highway in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And this man has now been not only convicted, he pled guilty, is now serving a 40-year up to 100-year sentence. And because Trump used him or highlighted him in these campaign ads about the dangers posed by criminal illegal aliens, suddenly, according to him, by pointing out his name, what he did, his past, his record, he says this was a form of humiliation. It was a violation of his privacy. I swear to you that he was ruining his good name, the good name of his family. And so now this scumbag, has filed a lawsuit against Trump in front of a liberal judge, by the way, in Michigan, federal lawsuit. And he says he wants to be awarded $75.5 million in damages. He's demanding free counseling, a public apology from President Trump, and U.S. citizenship. Naturalized U.S. citizenship. And you literally have Democrats who are saying, yeah, he's right. Trump had no right to use his name. And first of all, I'm thinking, dude, you're a convicted murderer. You brutally murdered this poor woman, Ruby Garcia. What name do you think you have? What public reputation you think you have? You have none. Stupid. You murdered somebody. Like, you want to talk about a sick narcissist. So let me get this straight. You killed this poor young woman who had her whole world in front of her, her whole life in front of her. Okay, the whole world in the palm of her hand. Things that she'll never be able to do. Get married, have children. I could go on and on. Yet you're the victim? You're entitled to $75 million? We're supposed to pay now for free counseling because your self-esteem has been hurt because President Trump named you in several ads? Like, is this a sick joke? No, it's not. And somehow, what entitles you now to U.S. naturalized citizenship? So is this how it works now? Shoot somebody twice in the head and get a 40 to 100-year life sentence, and bang, we'll give you a passport and citizenship. Is this now the new Democrat way? Is that how you guys roll now? Ay, 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 ay. Now, let me tell you, my fear, and it's many people's fear, it's why this story is being so widely reported. It's going in front of a liberal judge with a record of being virulently anti-Trump. And many people in Michigan are saying, you're not going to believe it. Now, eventually they believe it's going to be overturned. But they say, I'm telling you, don't be shocked if this guy is awarded the $75.5 million and the judge says Trump has to apologize to him and he gets free counseling and the judge grants him or tries to grant him naturalized U.S. citizenship. You see, this is what I mean when I say we're an 80-20 country. This is what the Democrats embrace. This is what the media embraces. This is their so-called cause célèbre. This is, to them, that's like the Nelson Mandela of the United States, the Gandhi of the United States. To me, what I want to know is, who's the 20%? In fact, I do know. It's the Bills in Sudbury and the Chris's in Gloucester. That's what's so freaking scary. 266-6868. Agree, disagree? Is it Dom? Dom in Salem. Thanks for holding, Dom, and welcome.
Yeah, Don from Salem.
Hi, Dom. Welcome. Welcome, Dom.
Thanks for putting me on, Jeff. You were talking about the Sebastian Guerrero man who was killed up in Maine.
Yes.
And you said that they tried to run him over. He tried to run them over.
Yes.
Excuse me. How do you even prove that? They didn't have body cams on. And do me a favor, don't cut me off and put me on hold while you go on some rant and call me a commie, okay? They don't have body cams on. Why? And the other point I'd like to make is, if there was a criminal investigation, why wasn't one done? All I saw was blood on the street and a street sweeper sweeping this poor man's blood off the streets. Is that the country you want to live in? He had his 3-year-old daughter in the back of that car. Why don't you tell your people that, okay? Maybe Sinclair doesn't want you saying that. What if that 3-year-old was shot, okay, God forbid? We'd be having a different conversation right now about ICE. They're lucky that 3-year-old's still alive. The mother of the man that was murdered was on. They were very nice. He was a legal citizen, Jeff.
No, he wasn't.
A legal citizen.
That's a lie.
He was on his way to becoming a legal citizen.
No, he's not. He wasn't a legal citizen. That's a lie. Listen to me.
No.
Listen to me. Stop. Calm down. First of all, Sinclair won't let me say something. I don't even know what you're talking about. Okay, I don't know who Sinclair is, what Sinclair is. That's point number one. Point number two. Oh, it says, oh, he's talking about the Sinclair broad. What does that have to do with me? Like, what is this guy talking about? Anyway, okay, that's number one. Number two, there were multiple witnesses who saw exactly what happened. And they have spoken to reporters and they gave their testimony to police. There were cameras there, people who videotaped it, and it showed him clearly defying orders from ICE to get out of the car, to stop and get out of the car. He refused to get out of the car. The video cameras and the testimony, the witness testimony clearly state and depict without the shadow of a doubt that he hit the gas pedal and he tried to run over ICE agents. Now, furthermore, this nice man who you claim was an illegal American, which he wasn't, was on a meth run. He was out to get meth. Okay? That's the kind of man he was. In fact, you want the cut from the eyewitness? Here, we're going to play you the cut from the eyewitness, and then I'm going to let you respond if you can stay civilized. Roll it, Mike.
I was driving through the intersection at Hill Street and Pool Street, and as I was approaching, you could see flashing blue lights, and then as I got closer, they were unmarked, so I assumed they were ICE, and then you could see them with their green vests and stuff, and it said police, ICE, and so as I actually was going through the intersection, I heard yelling. So I know I'm supposed to be paying attention, but I heard yelling off to so I looked and I was watching, and the ICE agent was yelling and drew his weapon, and he kept yelling and warning the person driving, which is when the car was put into drive and was trying to hit the ICE officer, and he fired, I would say, probably 4 shots at him. And then by that time, I was also through, the intersection, so I just heard the popping, but I did see him draw his gun at the windshield.
There. I mean, I could play you testimony after testimony. So what is the ICE agent supposed to do? Just let himself get run over and get killed? So my question to you is this. Why do you on the left side with criminal illegal aliens who want to murder law enforcement over the people tasked to enforce our laws and keep our community safe? Can you explain that to me?
Are you done? Are you done with your little rant? And
Listen to me. Answer my question or I'm going to move on.
I'll answer your question. Eyewitness accounts are very rarely the real account, okay?
Oh, so they're all lying. No, all the witnesses are lying? What about all the video cameras that show exactly what happened?
Where are the body cams on the officers?
The body cams are irrelevant. We have video cameras.
No, they aren't irrelevant.
No, of course they are. Because you have video cameras that show exactly what happened, plus eyewitness testimony.
Where's the investigation?
Now, by the way, the body cameras were missing because they were defunded. And who defunded them? Hey, Dom, do you know? Tell me. Do you know who defunded them?
It's so ridiculous. They got $200 billion.
Right. The Democrats defunded them when they shut the government down. Okay? So, Dom, I'm going to tell you to your face. It's people like you that are getting Americans killed. You know, Sandy and I were just talking off air. And I just want you to think, just stand back for a second, how effective the Democrat media indoctrination and brainwashing has been. Just look at that previous caller, Dom. He's sitting watching comments on Facebook about what happened in Biddeford, Maine. And yet he's acting like he knows more than the people who were there on the ground, direct eyewitnesses. So according to this, this moron, who are you going to believe? This guy in his mother's basement watching Facebook or on Blue Sky or whatever, or actual witnesses, their lying eyes who saw the whole thing, or the video cameras that caught everything that took place and, by the way, are available to the public. So we have the video surveillance, we have the video camera, we have eyewitnesses, and according to him, well, they're not reliable. Well, what, your Facebook is? I mean, you know how stupid that is? But that's the level of hatred. That's the level of willful blindness. That's the level of the propaganda and how effective it's been to vilify and villainize ICE. Basically what Dom is saying, and there are many on the left who are saying this, let him run over you. Let him run over you. And they're going on about the 3-year-old kid. Yeah. Why are you going on a meth run? He was going to get drugs. This guy was a drug dealer. He was a well-known drug dealer, and he did drugs. And you put your daughter in that? Now, notice, they don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to hear it. Because that's how much they've been conditioned now to hate ICE. And then they go on about the body cameras. Hey, when you've got video camera footage and you've got multiple eyewitnesses, direct eyewitnesses, which is, by the way, how you convict people in court. Duh. The body camera issue is null and void. Because we have footage and we have eyewitnesses. But even then, on the body camera footage, who was the one that killed the funding for the body cam footage for all of these ICE agents? It was the Democrats during the shutdown. It's a fact. Now the funding went through and now it's on a backlog. It's on a back order. And by the way, ICE and Holman have come out and said, we want body cameras on everybody. So this issue, they're hiding. There's nothing to hide. And look, this gets to the heart of the matter. Okay? Leave aside, you get idiot callers all the time. But this gets now to the heart of the matter, which is what you're watching in front of our eyes is clearly, without a shadow of a doubt, the transformation of the Democratic Party and of so many rank-and-file Democrats into a socialist, communist, Marxist, revolutionary, militant movement. As you heard with this guy, Dom, full of hate, full of emotion, utterly irrational, willfully blind, and nothing but pure hatred for ICE. And, the illegals have more rights than we do. The illegals have to be coddled and protected. No matter how many of them come in, no matter how many of them are murderers, rapists, drug dealers, criminals, gangbangers, it doesn't matter. Now, I want you to hear this because this is very important. The Democrats now are fielding what are called Democrat Socialist of America candidates. They are winning primary races against other Democrats, establishment Democrats, in very deep blue districts and jurisdictions. They have now come out with an official platform. This is an official DSA platform, meaning when they get the power in November, not if, because they're going to win their districts, they're going to win seats to Congress. These are the Mamdani, AOC, Bernie Democrats. This is now their platform. This is now what they're calling for. And the Doms of the world, the Bills in Sudbury, the Chris's in Gloucester, can deny it till the cows come home. This is what they're actually running on, and this is what they're winning on. Number one, the abolishment of private property. Number two, no prisons, no police, no borders. Full support for Hamas. They're rabidly pro-Palestinian. Israel to no longer exist as a state. Basically, another Holocaust. Medicare for all. They want to wipe out the entire billionaire, millionaire class. They want to seize people's homes and redistribute them, as you do in a communist society, to people who are on welfare, to illegal aliens, to people who are homeless. They want a dramatic Green New Deal, the one that AOC proposed, which would essentially end all fossil fuels in the United States. They want to abolish the Senate, the U.S. Senate gone, the U.S. presidency gone. Gone. Everything done through the House of Representatives, the Electoral College gone, Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. automatically admitted as states. Now, they can't seem to make up their mind about the Supreme Court. They either want it utterly abolished or they want it packed with 41 members, up to 41. It's currently at 9. So they basically want to make it a rubber stamp of this social, as in every socialist communist regime. Now, please listen to this, okay? Because you've got to hear this. Whatever you're doing, please stop. One of their rising stars, they're calling her the new AOC. They're calling her the female version of Mamdani. She defeated a 15-term Democrat incumbent in the primary in the 1st district in Colorado. Now, her background is very important. She is an avowed socialist and communist, as most of them are. Her name is Milat Kiros. Kiros. I'm telling you, she's going to win her race in Colorado. She will be the next member of Congress from the 1st Congressional District in Colorado. It's a deep blue district. The Republicans don't have a chance. She is currently now 29 years old. She was born in Ethiopia, in Africa, which, as you know, Ethiopia in particular was run by brutal Marxist dictatorships and has periodic famines. Her father, weeks after she was born in Ethiopia, won the U.S. diversity lottery, basically the lottery of life, allowing him, his daughter, Malat Kiros, his wife, his family, to come to the United States, they immigrated to Colorado. Now, you would think, call me crazy, being born in one of the poorest, most God-forsaken places on earth, where famine and starvation is almost a way of life, or if it's not that, it's civil war. They have no functioning society, no functioning government. It's pure anarchy. And it has been dominated by Marxist leaders and rulers for the last 50 freaking years. You would think, A, you would be grateful to be an American. B, the last thing you would ever want is Marxism or communism or socialism. Oh, no, no. Oh, no, 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 no. I want you to listen now to her, because she let the mask slip. The Democrats are usually a little more coy and a little more subtle. But she, at a conference, she let it all out. What we're about is the great replacement. We're going to flood this country with third world illegal immigrants, migrants. And she uses the term the global south, meaning they're all going to come from the third world. It's going to be from Africa, from South America, from the Middle East, because this way we will fundamentally transform America and with it the world. Why? Because the United States is the great Satan. That's what she says. That we exploit countries all over the world. We conquer, we plunder, and we exploit. Country after country after country. That's the heart of our capitalist system, is oppression at home and exploitation around the world. And so to end this exploitative capitalist system, okay, let me give it to you in the original Soviet Russian. Capitalism, imperialism, okay, capitalism and American imperialism. You have to flood the country with third world migrants, her words, and then elect people like her, whose roots are in the global south. Because then they will identify with third world communism. And America will be brought to its knees. It is the great replacement. She says it's on and we're executing it to a T. Roll cut 16, Mike.
I think it's particularly important, not just for our community in Tigray, but communities of the global south, period, right? There's a certain reckoning that we are going to have with the global world order as it exists today, and the way that it fundamentally will have to shift going forward, right? The responsibility that we have as Americans, the recognition that is going to be required of us, of the exploitative and extractive nature that we play on the global scale and the global stage, is only going to be challenged if we are getting represented by people who understand that on a fundamental level, right? And that means getting more immigrants into office. That means getting more people who have heritage in the global south into office, because that's where those decisions are made specifically.
I mean, it's right there. It's the great replacement. That's why you bring in all these Somalis into Minneapolis and St. Paul, or you bring Ethiopians into Colorado, or you bring the Somalis up into Maine, or I could just go, in Dearborn, you flood them with Muslims from the Middle East, the global south, and eventually you bring in millions and millions, and that's what Joe Biden did in his term. Obama began it, and then it was accelerated under Biden. They're just calling it the global south. I'm calling it the third world. Tomato, it's the same thing. Bring in the third world, become the third world. You become a third world country, and then you will identify with the third world. And that's how you bring about the ultimate communist revolution. It's a deliberate, concrete plan. Now, by the way, this is the gratitude we get for pulling you out of that hellhole, which is Ethiopia, Instead of saying, kissing the flag and saying, thank you, Jesus, that America took me and my father and my mother and my family in. Look what you get. Look. Now, here's a montage. These are supporters, members of the Democrat Socialists of America who are now taking over and hijacking the Democratic Party. Listen now. You tell me if they're not calling for communist revolution. Roll cut 30, Mike.
Despite all of this mythology of capitalism being invincible, permanent, and something we just have to get used to, history has shown that capitalism cannot exist without resistance, protest, and rebellion.
And as socialists, we believe that it will take a revolutionary struggle to achieve socialism. So socialist reconstruction in the U.S. is not only possible, but it's a historic responsibility to ourselves and the people of the world.
We cannot be satisfied with a reform status quo. It will require a massive movement for socialism and the adoption of socialist ideas across the country.
Now, by the way, this is not Joe Schmo off the street. Okay, I'm not talking about some person. I'm talking about this is the leadership of the DSA. These are the candidates that they are running and winning. And these are the party chairs or the co-party chairs from New York City to Boston to Chicago to Los Angeles to Seattle to Minneapolis. I could go on and on. So these are the commanding heights of the Democratic Party. This is what they're saying. Now, in Michigan, again, very quickly, there's a huge, high-profile Democrat primary. And most likely the winner of this primary will be the next U.S. Senator from Michigan. And it's between this radical left-wing feminist and, you guessed it, a Mamdani acolyte, a follower and supporter of Mamdani, an Islamo-communist, Abdul el-Sayed, or Sayed. He claims to be a doctor. He says he keeps referring to himself as Dr. Abdul el-Sayed. The only problem is he says he practiced medicine in New York. There's no license of him practicing. He has no license or any evidence that he practiced medicine in New York City. He said he also practiced medicine here in Boston. But apparently there's no license. He doesn't have a license to practice in Boston, and there's no evidence that he ever practiced in Boston. So it looks like he's a non-doctor doctor. Okay? But let that go. Abolish private property, Medicare for all, no prison, no police, no borders, abolish ICE, overthrow the entire capitalist system, and you guessed it, pro-Hamas. In fact, he's militantly pro-Hamas, virulently anti-Semitic, virulently anti-Israel. He wants Israel wiped off the face of the earth. He says Israel doesn't have a right to exist. And he supports Sharia law. In other words, he's Mamdani's man in Michigan all the way, baby. And remember Elizabeth Warren, how she supported the Nazi Graham Plattner? Well, guess who she's supporting now? The Islamo, anti-Semitic, communist Abdul el-Sayed. He's the fighter, she says, Michigan needs. Roll cut 14, Mike.
I'm endorsing Abdul el-Sayed for Senate in Michigan. Abdul is the only candidate in this race not taking corporate money, and he's fighting to get money out of politics altogether. Abdul studied to be a doctor, and he's fighting for every single American to have affordable, high-quality health care. Abdul has been a card-carrying union member, and he's fighting for working people. That's why he's endorsed by the United Auto Workers, and he's growing a movement of working people all across Michigan. And that's why I'm endorsing Abdul. He is the fighter Michigan needs in the Senate.
Yeah, no, he's the whack job you guys need for your commie revolution, your socialist communist revolution. Notice he's not a doctor. See, notice she says he studied to be a doctor. I could go on. I mean, he's such a fraud. You know, he's not corporate finance. No, he's Hamas financed. All his money is coming from places like Egypt or Pakistan or Saudi Arabia or Qatar. So he's swimming in Islamist money. That's how he's getting his cash. Now, let me just play one more because I want to go to the phone lines. As all of this is going on, the College Democrats of America are actually holding a convention as you and I speak. And they're backing all of these very far left, radical left-wing candidates. All of them. So Milat Kiros, they love her. Chevalier, the one that Mamdani put over the top in New York, she's also going to be a member of Congress. She's the one that openly is calling for abolishing ICE, no prison, no police, no borders. The one who openly calls for a communist takeover of the United States. Her words, not mine. Asked, are you a communist? Her answer, yes. That's Chevalier. Well, this one is at a convention. By the way, Jamie Raskin is there, that anti-Trump congressman. It's a who's who of the Democratic Party. And you know who's speaking there as well? The avowed Maoist. He's a Maoist. He's an admirer of Mao. The man who killed, 60 million people in China? He's dressed, you know the way Mao Zedong used to dress, with that sort of green military uniform and that cap with the red star? Hassan Piker. He is a podcaster, a huge influencer on the left. He is an avowed Maoist, an avowed communist, and by the way, a vicious Jew hater. I mean, a pathological Jew hater. He's speaking to the Democrats and to all these young Democrats, but to Democrat members of Congress, Democrat senators. And when he walks into the room, I'm not saying that they didn't give him the Heil Hitler, but they all stood up and clapped. Many of you are making the point now that Liar Watha, Chief Spreading Bull, Elizabeth Warren has endorsed the non-doctor, Abdul El Said for Senate in Michigan. Is this pro-Hamas guy? Is he her kind of man? Maybe you'll put her in a nice hijab or a nice burqa. You like that? That turns you on, Chief? Anyway, so Hassan Piker, a huge communist influencer for many on the left and Democrats, an avowed, forget Marxist, that goes without saying. He's an admirer of Mao. He is a huge champion of communist China. He wants Israel wiped off the face of the earth. He's a virulent anti-Semite. But he says China is the future, the way Soviet Russia was the motherland in the 20th century for the commies and socialists and the left. He now says China is the communist motherland for the Democratic Party and the left here in America. So he is speaking at the College Democrats of America at their convention. I can't tell you, dozens of Democrat members of Congress are there. Jamie Raskin speaking and watching. Senators, they all stand and clap when he arrives. Hassan Piker, he's dressed like Mao Zedong. And this is what he said at the convention. Roll cut 15, Mike.
No more to Trumpism, but no more to the Democrats who compromise, who conciliate, and who betray us. No more to the fascist reactionaries, but no more to the Democrats who will collaborate and cooperate with the fascists, who will fund ICE, who will fund Israel, who will help poison the planet, who will stiff workers and help bosses. We don't need those Democrats anymore. In fact, we have a message. We are coming. We are unbossed. We're unbought. We're unbound. And we will become undeniable.
Okay. This is serious. These guys aren't playing around. These are hardcore communist revolutionaries. And they have now infiltrated and hijacked the Democratic Party. And this is what Trump's going to be facing if the Democrats retake the House and the Senate in November. Exactly what you just heard now. JD on the North Shore. Thanks for holding, JD, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, JD?
Good, Jeff. I want to talk about two things quick and then have a response to why your previous caller, Dom, can't accept truth and facts. And it pertains to the Smith-Mundt Act, which Congress passed in 1948. And it was designed to counteract Soviet propaganda. And it basically gave the American government authority to propagandize other countries to promote America. However, when they passed the law, there was a restriction in it. And the restriction is it prevented the U.S. government from using taxpayer-funded media to propagandize its own citizens. Now, in 2012, under the urging of Obama and Democrat members in Congress, they amended the Smith-Mundt Act, which basically let news media, legacy media, propagandize and disseminate propaganda to American citizens. And that's what we're seeing right now. And I'll give you a perfect example. When Obama was in office, he deported hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens. He used ICE, same tactics as Trump's DHS is using now, deported them. In fact, they had Don Lemon riding around with them, saying what a great job he was doing. Now, the Smith-Mundt Act is amended. And what do you see? In fact, Obama gave Tom Homan Presidential Freedom Medal, the highest civilian honor. So now you have the news media lying to the American people, propagandizing them. ICE is bad, illegals are good. And to your previous caller, Dom, this is why they propagandize the citizens, Jeff. In the late 50s, early 60s, a Soviet KGB officer, Yuri Brezhnev, defected to America. And he divulged a Soviet communist tactic, which is propagandizing the citizenry. You tell them enough misinformation over and over again, and they're basically brainwashed. And they cannot accept the truth and the facts when presented because they've been conditioned and brainwashed. It's a psychological disorder. And that's what we're seeing happening in America now by the fake legacy news media. And it's disgusting. It's treasonous. And it needs to be changed.
JD, don't get me wrong. I only have eyes for my wife. But I love you in a non-sexual way, my friend. I mean, you want to talk about hitting the nail right on the head. You so nailed it, it's not even funny. What you just said is 1,000% true. And that conversation with Dom, those are the shock troops of these anti-ICE activists, the Democratic Party. Okay, even the terms, just so that everybody knows, the term misinformation, disinformation, that the media popularized to use against Trump and MAGA and us, his supporters, those were all invented in Soviet Russia. Those are, I mean, literally, they're KGB terms. They were invented by the Soviet Union to brainwash and indoctrinate their people and to try to discredit and destroy their internal opposition. So people often say, well, Jeff, why do you always say, disinformatio or misinformatio? Like, why do we have to hear it in the Russian? I'm like, because it's the original Russian. That's where the term came from. They invented it. Now, one of the things, and this is a tried and true communist tactic. Every scholar of communism will tell you this, okay, to a man and a woman. Among themselves, as you heard Hassan Piker, as you heard Milat Kiros, the great replacement, we want a communist revolution. They always, they're like fanatics. And like all fanatics, whether it be communists, Nazis, Islamists, they can't help themselves. They have to blab everything. They can't hide it. So they tell you everything what they're thinking. But what communism always has relied on to succeed is what Lenin called, quote unquote, useful idiots. And the useful idiots, many of them are not just in the Democratic Party, they're also in the media. And again, we're talking about revoking broadcast licenses, pulling licenses for naked lies and naked propaganda. Listen now to this. This is The View on ABC. How this show has stayed on the air all these years is, to me, mind-boggling. But what the communists used to always do is they would have the media, useful idiots, lie on their behalf. And so what was the lie? Mao was not a communist butcher. He was a Chinese peasant reformer. How did they sell Castro before and just when he seized power? Oh, he was a Cuban nationalist, a land reformer. That's all he was. He's no communist. He's no Marxist. Ho Chi Minh and the North Vietnamese. How did they sell him? Hey, he's a Vietnamese nationalist. He's not a communist. Stalin. What was Stalin? This is how they sold him. Come on, he's like a Russian Tsar. What are you talking about? He's no hardcore Marxist communist. Come on now. And of course, they all were. And they murdered together over 100 million people. That's the real legacy of communism. Well, listen now to Joy Behar on The View. Because this is the bull, you know what I really want to say. The Bravo Sierra, the BS, the bull crap that ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MS Now, they're all peddling the same line. Here's Joy Behar. Roll cut 31. Mike.
Is so-called democratic socialism, which is really just a buzzword for democracy and affordability, in my opinion. Yeah. They have bastardized the word, and now they're pulling people commies. It is the sign of a sinking ship. The Republicans are going down the toilet, and they know it. So they're pulling out these stupid cards like they're calling Democrats communists. Give me a break.
Yeah, give me the break. So no prison, no police, no borders, no ICE, seizing private property, Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, no fossil fuels, support Hamas, annihilate the Jews of Israel. By the way, Joy, she's Jewish. Joy Behar is Jewish. I don't think you're going to do well under Mamdani or, Abdul El Said and these Islamo-communists. Hassan Piker doesn't like people like you. I can just tell you, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, nah, I don't think you're going to do well. That's how stupid you are. That's how stupid you are. So, no, they admit they're communists. They talk like communists. They act like communists. They promote communism. But according to this idiot, just democracy and affordability. That's all it is. Jack, useful idiot. Jack in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Jack, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Jeff, how are you? Good morning.
Hi, Jack.
I want to point out a couple of
inconsistencies, like you said, from the useful idiot crowd you just talked to. That guy from Maine who you confronted with the facts, talking about the shooting. Once you confronted him and said he wasn't a citizen, he goes, well, he was almost a citizen. Almost. It's like, isn't that like almost being pregnant? You either are or you aren't.
Bingo.
So he wasn't a citizen. And then the second thing, the deflection he did was great. Oh, what about the 3-year-old girl in the car? Whose fault was that the girl was in the car? The ICE agents probably didn't even see her. She's 3. So it was the useful idiot who didn't blame ICE, who blamed ICE, who didn't blame the person he should have blaming, the dad who was going on a meth run. You know?
Well, Jack, look, I know you would never use meth, so please don't get insulted that I use this analogy. But let me ask you, okay, if you were a drug addict, not that you are, obviously, but like, I can speak for myself. God forbid if I was ever a drug dealer or a drug addict, I wouldn't bring my kid. Who brings their 3-year-old kid? That's number one. And then number two, when you try to run over a law enforcement officer and you get shot, I'm the victim? I try to run over and kill a police officer bringing a 3-year-old kid on a meth run. But no, I'm the victim. I'm the poor guy. I mean, Jack, seriously, would you ever bring a 3-year-old on a meth run? Not that you would ever do a meth run, right? But, you would at least say, well, look, maybe daddy screwed up, but, I'm not right in the head. But, honey, I'm not going to put you in any danger. You're going to stay at home with your mother or my mother, whoever. Jack, am I wrong?
But, Jeff, you're not wrong. And 2 more points you brought up. You brought up Hiawatha endorsing that knucklehead in Michigan. You know what she didn't say? What you said, you brought up the point before that you didn't find a license for him in New York or Massachusetts or anything. She said he was studying to be a doctor. She didn't say he was a doctor.
That's right.
And she's one of the biggest useful idiots of all. And the other guy that you said, you know how President Trump just released all the information about the Chinese paying off journalists. I wonder what the other idiot in the mouse suit, how much did he get paid? That's going to be an interesting thing. How much is the Communist Chinese Party paying him to spout their propaganda?
Hassan Piker, Jack, remember that name. He is huge on the left. And when I mean die hard, forget communist. He's a Maoist. Jack, I guarantee you he's taking millions from the CCP. Take it to the bank. He's on their freaking payroll. Jack, you're batting 1,000. Jack, thank you so much for that call. Excellent call. John, he's right, by the way. That's one of the people that's taken money from the CCP. I mean, just as surely as the sun rises. Who admires Mao? Who dresses like Mao? And they're all standing. I mean, they gave him a standing ovation at the end. Like, woo, yeah. By the way, please don't take my word for it. Just look up Michigan primary or Michigan Senate race. The Abdul El Sayed campaign. He's not Abdul. He's Dr. Abdul El Sayed. And the left-wing media never, how are you a doctor? What credentials do you have? Because they figure, well, people in Michigan, the low information voters are going to say, oh, well, he's a doctor. He's a doctor. I got to vote for a doctor. Obviously, an intelligent man. He's a doctor. No, he studied to be a doctor. You see, I don't claim to be an astrophysicist, but, in the 9th grade, I studied physics. No, I studied to be an astrophysicist. So I'm an astrophysicist now. John in Saugus. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Taking my call. I'd like to ask you one question.
Yes.
If all these avowed communists brag about being communists, how can they get on and be elected, for one thing? And if they are, how can they take an oath to this country? Shouldn't the Republicans right now and Congress do something about this before it happens? Because this is a wildfire, Jeff. I've been listening to you, and I'm 90 years old, Jeff. Okay, and I've seen everything, and I'm telling you right now, the Mother of God told us this would happen, and the only thing that's going to save us is prayer. And if these Republicans only get on their ass and start doing something, we're
in big trouble. John, look, pray. I'm not kidding. I pray. I pray for this country now all the time. Ken in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Ken, and welcome.
How are you, Jeff? How you doing?
Good. How are you, Ken?
Oh, good. Hey, so anyway, we have a few other doctors. You know, we've got Dr. Mengele, we got Dr. Frankenstein, and we also have Dr. Fauci. So, that's good. And to continue on, if there's an 80-20 and 80 is in our favor, all right, that means we outnumber them 4-1. The problem is when you look at the diametrics of the age groups, between 18 and 35, what is it? Because I got a feeling a lot of the useful idiots, I think, are packed into that age group only because they've been indoctrinated through the school system and through everything else. I will say I do agree with John from Saugus. All the CINOs out there, Catholic and name only, better start taking their faith very seriously. As you rightfully know, that in Boston, it's going through the House and Ways and Means Committee, I believe. They want to put 11-member council together to give Islam a little bit of freedom, okay, in governing. And I just saw this. And again, I think we're more of a service economy here. We're sitting back expecting all these politicians that we know a lot of rhinos and everything else. All right, imagine if we acted like these, quote, radical Democrats and started putting their feet to the fire and said, we're going to throw your you-know-what out the freaking window. Because I'll tell you, the only way this is going to come to the top is either two ways. Dead wood does float, and dead wood's not worth anything. I got a feeling we have a lot of dead wood in the Republican Party. They need to be put on account. The other side is getting paid millions upon millions on all facets of media, of propaganda, you name it. Even on drone sales, as we know through China, what's going on with Iran. So a number of things are happening, and I see a lot of, bloviating and whatnot over what we're going to do. But, if we don't do it, like here's the other thing. If communism is outlawed in this country, then why in the world are they even being elected, okay? And then Islam, they were never supposed to be even to hold office in this country. And we know who's basically behind all that. We got Clinton, and then we got Obama. Clinton was the first one that opened the trap door. Obama took the door off the hinges. Okay? These people should be held for treason. We need to really get on the offensive here. Okay? We shouldn't even be talking about losing the midterms, because after all, I'll leave it with this. We outnumber them supposedly 4-1.
Oh, you nailed it, Ken. You hit the nail on the head. Look, there's no question. If we turn out to vote the way we should, with the numbers that we have, it's no contest. That's why the Democrats are forced to cheat. That's why they're blocking the SAVE Act with everything they have. Because they know if there's any kind of a free or fair election, this thing is over. It's not even close. And look, Ken, as a naturalized American citizen, and I'm going to be brutally honest with you, outside of marrying my wife, whom I love to death, obviously, and adopting my 2 beautiful American children, it was the happiest day of my life. Really, I'm telling you, I had tears of joy streaming down my cheeks. My wife will tell you, she was with me. So I was so proud. But I took an oath. And to me, when I take an oath, God is my witness. I uphold that oath. I mean it. When I put my hand on my heart and I swear to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, it's not just something for me to get a passport. so I can milk this country. To me, I believe the Constitution is the greatest document for freedom and liberty in the history of the world. And I believe it is the basis of the greatest civilization in the world, which is America, American civilization. And if you understand, I'm not lecturing, I know you understand the Constitution, but what I'm saying is, if you understand the Constitution, communism is completely incompatible with the Constitution. Communism is antithetical to the Bill of Rights. I can get the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, just literally every amendment they're opposed to. Islam, the same thing. So how can these people, these democratic socialists, communists, but the DSA as they're called, win elections like Mamdani? Mamdani, by the way, he swore on a Quran. And he swore to uphold the Constitution. He can't. He's an Islamo-communist. He's out to destroy the Constitution. That's their political project. So they cannot be sworn in. Communism is the very antithesis, the very antithesis of the United States and everything we stand for. So if the Republicans had, forgive me, if they had some balls, okay, if they had some, cojones, they would say, you guys can win all the primaries you want. But the ideology that you're preaching, what you say you want to impose and implement in America, overthrows everything this country stands for, starting with the Bill of Rights and the Constitution.